Hello and welcome to Quantum Home Sanctuary Summit 9. I'm Helen O'Reilly and I will be your host. The Quantum Creator Summits are designed to move you into your own innate power as a quantum creator. And the alignment during the next evolutionary cycles that we're in are going to be key to your sense of well-being. I have a really special guest today. Erica Van Eaton is a very actually unique quantum transformation alchemist. And her site, ericavaneaton.com, is available for you to explore. She's an intuitive energy healer that uses sound, light, and quantum therapy techniques to access the matrix of the human for healing. The intention she holds is for unification. She looks at healing and expansion of self-expression through the lens of wholeness. And there's more information in the link below. Welcome, Erica. How are you?
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Excellent. I'm excited to meet you. And I see your journey is a journey that involved around your mother, around being a mother. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to explore that with you, your backstory, because it appears that your journey began with your oldest son. And what happened?
Yeah. So like you said, my journey began with my oldest son. And when he was born, we had this instant connection. I wasn't down the spiritual path yet. I didn't understand energy. I had no idea what quantum physics and all that kind of fun stuff was. But I just knew this child. And I knew when I said his name and he looked at me in the eyes that he knew me too. And we knew each other on a soul level. And because we had such a clear connection when he was born, I could communicate in a way that was telepathic, but I didn't understand what that actually meant. I just knew what he needed. I knew what he needed out of his environment, and I knew what affected him. So I was able to teach and accelerate his learning. By the time he was 3, he could sight read over 100 words. He knew colors, he knew shapes, he knew all these things. But because I didn't understand energy yet, I didn't know that my primary fear, that when he started school, that my primary fear was that his teacher wouldn't see and know his brilliance in the way that I knew it. And because that's the energetic frequency that I was holding when he began school, that's exactly what happened. And she held such a low vibrational standard of who he was because he was born with Down syndrome. And we later realized he was on the autism spectrum, that because she held the vibration of what those terminologies meant and all the programs associated with him, he shut down and we lost everything. Mm-hmm. And it was through losing our connection and then having a miscarriage and all these other things that were happening that I began to meditate for some semblance of peace, because I felt like failure. I felt shame. I felt guilt. And that was our journey into me discovering the world of spirituality.
Yes, to understand why. Was it that you were pursuing, did you not understand, or did you feel confused about why he was born unique? And I think this will benefit many people. Did you feel some kind of sense of guilt?
I did. I absolutely felt guilt. I felt like it was my fault, but it went so much deeper than that, because I knew he was this brilliant being of light, and he was trapped in this body and he couldn't express it. And I wanted to understand the connection. He would come to me in my dream state when he was really little. And this is, again, before I delved into the world of spirituality. He would come to me in my dream state and he would show me himself doing something that he couldn't yet do in the physical world. So when you have Down syndrome, one big side effect of that is lower muscle tone. And so it can be difficult to go from laying to sitting to crawling, etc. So he would come to me in my dream state and he would show himself doing the thing, going from laying to sitting, and you could feel the emotions of joy, and they would be super vivid with color. And so you'd wake up in the morning and you would feel the joy and the excitement that he had when he was able to do the thing with the vivid picture in your mind. it would be shortly after those dreams that he would be able to do the thing. What he was teaching me how to do was to play in the quantum field for him. I was building the memory and bringing the frequencies of the emotions that we needed to attach to that memory. I was building the frequencies. So every memory that we have, it doesn't really reside in our bodies. It resides in the energy field that connects all things. It's like in this balloon. The memories are like in these balloons, and they hold the range of frequencies that we experience associated with the memory. So I was building the memory for him in the quantum field. And then I was holding the frequencies that he needed to embody to be able to do and connect into that memory. When I would wake up in the morning, I would still feel those moments of excitement and joy attached to this memory. And because I held those frequencies, he was able to then embody those frequencies from me and then be able to do the thing, attach into the memory in the energy field. Does that make sense?
Totally. Also, it's completely brilliant.
Oh, no, it was.
It's completely brilliant. And I love that it was inspired by being the mother.
Yeah.
Mothering. And that's absolutely brilliant. And I've never heard it described this way, because I've never heard it described from a mother's point of view. We're hearing Bruce Lipton, Esther Hicks, but this is actually born by your connection with him and some of the highest frequency. We were, just to give a footnote to the audience, we were told the highest frequency being on planet Earth right now is living in a body with Down syndrome on Long Island. So there's, times they are doing this to teach you and to teach us that it has nothing to do with this or this. It's completely beyond it, right? So incredible. And so did this become, so when we first started talking also, so did this downloading and perception of the quantum field become a daily ritual for you?
It's definitely evolved. Yes. Yeah. It's definitely evolved over. My understandings have definitely evolved over time as he continues to show me different perceptions. So when we, you just said you were talking about Down syndrome and the frequencies that they can hold. So those with autism, those with Down syndrome, when our spirit starts to descend down into the human body, we come down on a white ray of light. We hit that prism filters out into an entire spectrum of light, these different light rays that we come in on. And most of us embody 2 or 3, sometimes 4 of those different colors of rays. And each of those colors of rays holds a spectrum of consciousness. It's just a spectrum of frequencies. Well, those like my son and others like him, they embody the entire spectrum of light. And so that's why their frequency is so vast and so expansive, because they don't just embody the ray of lights that we know, but it's beyond that, where they have merged and expanded even more in those quantum realms. So you imagine this spirit that is so vast and so expansive, trying to come down through the chakra system. When they have tried to come down into those lower 3 chakras, those lower 3 chakras have been spinning too slowly because of all the emotional and chemical warfare that we've placed upon the earth plane that has definitely slowed those chakras down, right? Yeah. So when you have this incredibly vast soul trying to come down into these chakras, they often get bounced sideways or completely out of their body, or they get fragmented because they cannot center down into those lower 3 chakras. So my evolution with my son has been through one, learning that whole situation, right? And then what can we do? What do we need to do differently as a human species? How do we need to embody differently? How do we need to heal differently to be able to hold this vast array of light? Because they came here to hold that frequency for us so that we could attune to them and become a different kind of human and a more unified divine way, right? So my whole journey with him and what he's been showing me along this whole path is, how do we embody differently? What do we need to heal? What do we need to shift? And how do we need to work with the quantum realm differently so that we can open up these chakras, open up the energy centers, the brains within those energy centers? What do we need to heal and shift so that we can expand them out in such a way that we can embody the entire spectrum of light in this human container?
Whoa. You're amazing. Actually, that's so he is the teacher of this transitional time. So also, where are you based on Earth?
Yeah.
Just,
So I grew up in Kansas, and we lived there in Kansas in the United States, majority of the life. But about 4 years ago, I got guided that we had to move close to an ocean because my kids, I have 3 boys. They all needed those negative ions that come off the ocean. Like their body was craving it. Their energy matrices needed it. So we moved down to a place called the Woodland, Texas, because it's close to the ocean, but yet it seems like smaller. And there's these magnificent, huge trees and trails everywhere. And that's what my family needed to be able to ground and to kind of be held, because they're so galactic. Yeah.
There's no galactic, exactly. So, as a galactic mom, we're going to be going off course a little. What is your daily, first of all, how old is your son now, if I may ask?
Yeah.
What is his name?
His name is Caden, and he's 14. So okay. I have 14, 12, and then an 8-year-old. And if you were to talk to Caden, like we're having a conversation right now, he doesn't talk about these things because it's just not, it's so embodied, it doesn't make sense for him to have a conversation. It'd be like us talking about a banana, to him. It's so like embodied and normal. There's just no question about it. So what started happening when he was little is that I was sitting in meditation, and his soul would come to me, and his soul was the one that would be conversing with me and showing me the things. The Pleiadian Council of Light came in when I was first waking up, and I would wake up in the middle of the night and I'd be like, who are these beings? Because I could kind of hear them and I could feel, and then I would just know. And so they were coming in and they were downloading information in my energy field at night while I was sleeping. And then how it would begin to unzip was I would just be observing my son throughout the day. And I ask a lot of questions. I ask questions every day of how can I see this differently? What am I missing? What are we missing? How can we see this from a different perspective? And it's from those questions then that it's almost like portals opened up in the energy field that allowed me to connect to different levels of consciousness, different dimensional fields that held the answers that I was seeking, that I could hold at the time. But again, we ask these questions, we download, we channel, but after that, we can dive into something even deeper. So what we're talking about today, we're going to be able to embody, but then move beyond that a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, the answers will be completely different because the frequencies of the information that we can hold will continue to shift and change.
Whoa. Okay. That's absolutely truth. And I love the questions. How can I see this differently? How can I change my perception? Because what we're doing in the summit is actually getting people to realize their quantum creator capabilities and how they can see this differently. Exactly. It is a perspective shift. Now, you did this as a mom. Was there any heartache or grief, or was there any human attachment to working with Caden? How did the human heart evolve for those also that might have some shifts going on in their life?
Every day I experienced human moments. We went through this shift in school where he started having behavioral outbursts and he became a little violent. And that wasn't something that we had ever experienced. And it was because he was feeling such a disconnect and so much discordant energy. It was so overwhelming. And that's when I was headed towards depression because I'd had a miscarriage and I was feeling like a failure for not being able to connect with him and understand. So I've experienced a very broad range of emotions, but it's what led me to ask the questions, to sit and get quiet and be able to hold space for myself first. And I had to be able to do that. I had to be able to shift and change myself first before he would even consider shifting and changing. So as I learned, when the Pleiadian Council of Light, for example, came to me first, They wanted me to shift and change and open up and upgrade my root chakra and do a lot of healing with my root chakra. So I had to heal and open myself first before he would even consider coming down into his. His spirit wasn't going to do that because he came here to mirror what I needed to heal and shift and change so I can embody myself, and then he will do it. So anything that we have went through, I've had to heal on myself first before he will consider doing it. And then once I do it, then he's able to embody and do the same thing.
So it's almost as though he came in, and I'm going to use this term in a new context. It's almost as though he came in as a soulmate relationship, teaching you, pulling you along, or a spiritual teacher to show you that the human way is not the only way. The quantum realm is accessible, and you are highly telepathic and gifted. So that's incredible for mothers to hear. That what is this child here to teach, to show, to exemplify, and to mirror? So that's beautifully said. And so what quantum techniques are you using now? I know we have the questions, how can I see this differently? How can I change my perspective, which is what a summit's about, is seeing things differently and changing your perspective while you're riding the bike at the same time, like not stopping your life. But what specific quantum techniques do you use with him and with yourself on a daily kind of basis?
Well, the first thing we had to do was bring everything into unison for the human container. And with that, I mean the ego and the mind and the body consciousness. We needed to bring them into divine harmony with the soul and the spirit so that everyone was in communication. For a long time down the spiritual path, we've been told to shut our ego down and shut it out. But with him, what I was seeing and, what the Pleiadian Council of Light came in and showed me was he needed the ego. And because his ego was so quiet, that's why when he went to school, he became absorbed and became that image of what she saw with him. He needed some kind of boundary. And that was the original intention of the ego. So first, we need to redefine what the roles of our ego and what our incredible minds. Our mind can be a healing container in and of itself. Our body consciousness has a voice, and it can be a healing container in and of itself for us. And when we introduce each of those different aspects of us to our soul and to each other, they begin this harmonious conversation so that when we are interacting with the quantum realm, with the energy field that connects all things, everyone's on board. You have your ego wanting to tap into the same memory, and the mind wanting to tap into the same memory, and the body consciousness wanting to tap into the same memory as the soul evolves and expands. And so by introducing each of these different aspects of you to your soul, to your unique soul signature, those beautiful codes of light that you came down on, those different rays of light that only you hold, that you were derived from, that you embody and you came here to express. When we have the ego, mind, and body consciousness all on board, wanting to help this expression that resides in our heart space expand out into the field of energy, they all begin working together in divine harmony to tap into the quantum realm, into the memories that best serve the expansion of your heart space, of your soul, of your spirit. So
beautifully said. And the unique soul signature, which is what the summit is about. Once you tap into that, we are, in many ways, if you continually, which your life brought you challenges, which made you do it, but if we do this continually, then you are in alignment with this very unique ray of light that's you. And there is no shortcut to this. Did you call any shortcut? Does it involve your daily, hourly, moment-to-moment concentration? Okay, we're going to speak the truth. We only speak the truth on
So
this.
as we continue to shift and change, of course, we're going to get triggered by things. And when my ego triggers me or my mind triggers me with thoughts, I take it as, I'm so grateful. Thank you for showing me where I still have a neural pathway that's associated with a false belief system that's keeping me playing small or keeping me limited in some way, keeping my spirit contracted in some way. So, our unique soul signatures work just like our DNA. We know that if we put, there's been so many experiments on this. So we know that if we direct negative, harmful emotions and thoughts and feelings and words towards a strand of DNA, it begins to shrivel up to protect itself. As it shrivels up, the telomeres on the end of those DNAs shrivel up, and codes of light within that DNA shut down to protect itself. But the reverse happens if we talk positively, if we have positive feeling emotions, and those are our primary, vibrations, that DNA begins to expand back out. They've done this with cancer patients. They're starting to use light therapy, different colors of light, different colors of, or different frequencies of music, and putting it into the patients so that the cancer begins to shrink because our DNA codes begin to lengthen back out and heal. Our spirit does the same thing. So if we have all these false belief systems of unworthiness, lack, shame, that we aren't enough in some way, it works just like our DNA. It starts to constrict us. And so our unique soul signature, those divine codes of light, shrink to protect itself. But when we have this entire human container working together, working in divine harmony to expand this, your unique soul signatures not only begin to expand, but you begin to embody even more of that entire spectrum of light, like my son came down to embody. Why are they doing that? They're doing that so that we can embody more of those rays of light, more of those rays of consciousness as well. So it continues to shift and change. And as you continue to shift and change, you're going to be triggered because you're going to find a new belief system that is a contradiction to this new code that you are embodying and expanding out, right? So you're going to have to just talk to your mind, talk to your ego, and look and see where at, and maybe you can't look, maybe you just feel, maybe you just know where at in the quantum field am I sending a vibration out and attaching into a false belief system associated with some kind of memory that isn't serving me, that's keeping me shrunk and playing small. So it's a continual process. Does it get faster? Does it get easier? Absolutely, yes. Like, can I switch something like in a couple of seconds? Yes. But it took me a while to remember to open up the conversation between my mind, my ego, and my body consciousness, and my spirit, my soul, my inner child, my primal self, all these different aspects that make us human. We need to bring them all in and talk to all of them and get them all, give them all a voice.
Oh, I love that. This is true holistic healing, actually true quantum healing. So I noticed, I went to your site, it's beautiful, by the way. And what I noticed was you have and I got distracted. I was actually trying to download I was trying to purchase one of your meditations on cutting the cords of the darkness, which there's a big theme going on in the spiritual quantum realm right now where, and I don't totally buy into this. I believe we have our own shadow selves, and we need to be conscious of that. But you have some processes about cutting the cords, separating from the false beliefs, or I call the distortion matrix, you call distortion. And how do you do that? So when we become aware that something that doesn't quite feel like us, like it's sort of you stated earlier that the chakras have their own brain system, that they have and this is what people don't realize is how complete each chakra actually really is. And how even right now, as you're listening, as the listeners, we are stimulating and subduing. We're stimulating some new beliefs that are contained, and we're also cutting the cords with some false beliefs. So what's your process with that? Because that's trending right now. People are all of a sudden aware.
Yeah. So,
other than
I have this medical physics background, so I can talk very sciencey, and I try to really bridge science with spirituality. But, we are nothing but atoms of energy, photons of light. But atoms are sticky. They're electromagnetic. They form bonds. So these false belief systems, different people, places, things, when we have been in alignment with them, or when we've had shared frequencies with them, we can often form these bonds, which we can call them, sometimes they look like a cord, but oftentimes they actually look like enmeshments. They look like these chain link fences that, because of the magnetic bonds that they all hold. So when we think about, I'm just seeing where they want to go with this. So when we think about these atomic bonds,
I just felt that.
basically.
You just brought in like a whole nother group.
Yeah. So when we think about these bonds of energy, whether they're an enmeshment or a cord, it's just energy that we need to bust up. So if we feel a constriction somewhere in our energy field, or if you feel like you continually think about someone that, you know, you're not really in divine alignment with or harmony with any longer, but you're still thinking about them, you're still affected by them. Or you're thinking about an old memory, even like we were talking about earlier, memories are just in the quantum field. They're just in the energy field. So when we think about that, each of our energy centers has a brain. There's a neurological plexus of neurons in each one of these chakras. So like in our root chakra, it's the inferior mesenteric nerve plexus there that carries a brain. Anytime energy goes through a nerve plexus, it creates a brain, which creates consciousness that carries frequencies. There's also a chemical compound called neuropeptides that get released with every emotion that we've ever felt. If we do not know how to process an emotion from any experience, person, place, or thing, those neuropeptides often get lodged inside the organs that nerve plexus governs. So like the root chakra, we got, the sex glands, and we often have not felt safe. We haven't really trusted. So all those neuropeptides that are associated with that experience and memories, those are what get lodged in the body. Those neuropeptides, those are what carry the frequency of the emotions from the experiences. So they carry these frequencies and they're lodged in our tissues, our fascia, and everything else. They're the ones radiating out frequencies into the field, making these connections, making these enmeshments and things, and cords and tethers and ties and all these different things. So to not just to memories, but to certain people and places and things. So when we want to release an enmeshment or a cord, tethers, ties, even bonds, oath agreements, contracts. I just taught a large group class on that inside the membership portal I have a membership site. We have to work not just in the energy field, but we have to work with the physical container too, talking to her, talking to him, and releasing all the different toxins and chemicals released when we experience that emotion, so that, we can release a cord. But if those neuropeptides, if those chemicals are still lodged in the body that were associated with the cord's going to come right back. Does that make sense? So we have to work like on a full spectrum scale to get to release and to start to tie into a new memory. What we often forget to do is like, we don't want to be this anymore. I'm done. I don't want to be that. But we forget to tie into something new. Who do I want to be then? If I don't have this restriction over here, if I'm not tethered to this person getting distracted or this experience, if I don't have that anymore, what am I tying into in the quantum realm that I do want to experience? Who am I? What does that person feel? What are they experiencing? What do they look like? How much money do they have? What would that person, if this is the lack over here and I want to tie into wealth, what does wealth feel like? How would a wealthy person be acting? What would they be saying? And how can I embody that now so that I can start releasing those chemicals in my body and start getting addicted to that future, that experience, start building those neural pathways that are associated with that experience in the quantum realm.
I love it. That's redesigning your future, your present future, actually, in the quantum realm. So what is your science background, by the way? I'm curious.
I worked as a cardiac sonographer for over a decade. I did heart ultrasounds in a hospital. And so with ultrasound, you have to take a lot of physics classes.
Yeah.
And I was able to see internally what was happening when a person was experiencing some kind of emotional trauma. Because I worked, do surgeries or be in codes, like when trying to revive someone, or everywhere in the hospital. So I've always been super intuitive. So if I would start intuitively talking to someone to get them distracted from what was occurring, just something that I knew that would relax them, their heart rate would become more coherent. And I needed that heart rate to be more coherent to get more accurate readings. When the heart rate's really incoherent, the pressures and different kind of numbers that the doctors need, they're not really correct. So I would start intuitively talking to someone. I would have them start breathing to calm them down. And then their heart rate would become more coherent and I could get better quality images. So I was seeing it internally at the hospital. And then I was seeing it externally with my son when I would take him into these different kinds of environments. And I was like, what bridges these two worlds, this internal world with this external world? And that's what led me down studying quantum physics and merging these worlds of science with spirituality.
You are right on. You're right in tune with the world actually doing this. So that's a very big question. What does bridge? And it is asking questions, becoming aware. But what do you feel is the one single thing that bridges our consciousness with the greater quantum realm, the unified field, our unique vibrational essence? What's the one process that you have found to be irrefutable in connecting us? I know that's a big question. I just thought, because you obviously have a depth of knowledge.
Yeah, I actually really love it. Here on Earth, it's our emotions.
Okay. What we're feeling.
Because the angels, the archangels, other beings of light, star beings, they don't necessarily have emotions or have ever experienced emotions. But here, we're very much aligned with the earth. Our magnetic North Pole and our magnetic South Pole need to be aligned with the earth. And so that's how we play with the quantum realm here on earth, is through these magnetic poles. And it's our magnetic connections with these memories and different things. So for us, for humans, it's primarily through emotions and being able to feel what we want to feel in the future as if it's happening now, because the vibration of what we feel as humans is so strong. It's we can have a thought, but when we have an emotion attached to that thought, it amplifies the energy wave like tenfold. So that's our strongest connection to the energy field and to the quantum realms.
Interesting. And of course, the educational system does everything to get you out of your heart and into your head. Mm-hmm. So the disconnect is the over left brain, over analytical, the mind.
Mm-hmm. I do have hope that that's changing, though, because I have been being asked to speak in schools around the world, like Texas, public schools. So, and I've talked to counselors. I think because I have that science background, I can speak a language that they can understand. So we are talking about emotional intelligence. We are talking about what a teacher is feeling, how that affects the classroom, or when a child is really suffering, how that affects the rest of the kids or the teacher. So we're bringing in emotional intelligence and talking about those kinds of things in a way that, wasn't really ever talked about before. But I do feel like with all the mental health crises and stuff happening, it can't be overseen anymore. And so we have to open up these conversations. And I really have faith. And I think that they are being looked at a little bit differently.
Oh, absolutely. They have to be. We have to shift, actually. But it is key. And actually, a key point in this summit is, if you have been ignoring your feelings, trying to reach into this more, because we're talking intellectual abstract concepts, subtle energy fields, chakras that are brains. It's all in your gut feel. It's really all in your gut feel that you got programmed out of. And that's where your essential vibration is.
Exactly. So I actually taught a class on that because we've also, like, even in spirituality, we've not really been taught to link our instincts with our intuition.
True.
But those two things need to come in alignment. we have disregarded our instincts from day one to be the good little girl, the good little boy, right?
Ooh, big topic.
Yeah.
That's
So
a
we
big
have
topic.
to, when we're really talking about healing from a holistic point, we have to acknowledge our instincts and bring that primal earthly self in and honor, the earthly emotions. And sometimes your primal self is really pissed off, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's our ability to move that entire emotion and all the chemicals that are associated with it through us in such a way that it's that the intelligence is embodied, but the addiction to that emotion completely evaporates and leaves. So we're not tying into things in our energy field that resemble being pissed off or that are going to cause us to be even more pissed off, right? So we're human and we're going to experience this broad range of emotions, but how do we retain the intelligence while at the same time releasing the toxins and the chemicals and the neuropeptides associated with that emotion?
So how do we release the chemicals and the toxins that could be interfering? So it's an important distinction because, we can work mentally, emotionally, spiritually, but sometimes it is the chemical, there is chemical interference. So as a scientist, how do you release those?
Through a lot of it can be done through breath work. I think breath work has become super important. And a lot of the neuropeptides and things like that get released actually through the breath. They vaporize through the breath, through the urine, through sweat. And that's why exercise is becoming more and more important as we continue to shift and change our frequencies. Our bodies actually needing to move, even if it's a slow walk outside, our bodies are needing to move to help process off these chemicals. So if you do a big healing, you might be really tired and need to drink a ton of water to help move these toxins through. But the next morning, please get up and take a walk. Your body is begging you. You might be exhausted, but if you can just take a walk around the block, or if you're in a wheelchair, if you can just wheel yourself around the block, get the flow moving so that your body can really release these toxins, from the tissues and from the lymphatic system and things like that.
Very well. And the breath work, water, the basics, breath work, water, exercise, and movement. And especially now in the toxic world that we're living in, cleansing, of course, but we have other people talking about that prolifically. So I love this, that you have integrated the science with the subtle energy field to shape and develop a very different lifestyle. So what is your life? So now I'm curious. So I'm just asking this out of curiosity. What is your lifestyle? You're raising 3 boys by the ocean. So and you're doing this magnificent work. What is your actual day-to-day lifestyle? I think a lot of mothers will be interested in this, actually.
Very normal looking. My husband's a pharmacist, and he had to bridge that himself. Like, that was difficult for him as he went through his spiritual journey of the pharmaceutics. But we realized at the same time that you and I can do a lot of healing work without the use of external chemicals. There's still people that need a little bit of help getting along the way. And so he just blesses, and he blesses the medication, and he does it that way.
Yeah.
But my 3 kids, they're in public school, and they've chosen, every year I give them the option. Do you want to stay here? Do you want to try something different? But they're very, very active. And the younger 2 loves competitive sports. And so it's a way for them to really connect with their body. They're extremely athletic. My husband and I did athletics in college. So, it doesn't have to look like we live in a hut meditating all day. It's not like that at all. It's a very
in New York, on a mountaintop in the Himalayas. Oh my God.
Yeah, we look like a very normal human family because they did come here and they want to experience everything about being human. And so my middle son, that's 12, he's in 7th grade this year, and he wanted to try tackle football. And at first I was like, oh, but what I've noticed is he's an alchemist and an amplifier. So he takes on energy and he just kind of blows it up. Well, when he's had a lot of stomach issues, but when he's on the football field and he's making a tackle, there is such a big release for him of energy that not just busts up for him, but it's busting up what the other person is doing too. So there's reasons why it's okay to experience all these different facets of being human, even if they look like very old school, mundane, like sports kind of do here. And it's what we teach, what I talk to the kids a lot about. It's not a competition against anyone else. It's you connecting with your body. How much more can I trust my body? How can I make my body move? How can I connect more deeply with my body in this now experience? What does my body want to do differently? Or how do I want to show up for it? What kind of foods does my body crave in this now moment? If my kids want to go get a dye-filled nasty slush every once in a while, we're going to go do that. And we just bless it and we have fun with it. And then we release all the toxins later just through blessing and breathing and allowing them to move and do it that way. So it's not like a super restrained, restrictive kind of lifestyle that we live at all. It's very fluid, but it's very conscious. We're consciously consuming, we're consciously moving, we're consciously having arguments with each other at times. Like my middle son's in junior high and he's really wanting that self-exploration, and that sovereignty. And he's the one that came to me and actually asked me to do the unmeshing first. I was in meditation and his spirit popped in and he's like, hey, we need to unmesh because you're ascending a lot faster than I want to right now. So I need a little bit of distance physically, like energetically from you. So it's like, okay. So that's when I learned about the enmeshment process with people and learning how to break the bonds between us so that he can have his own experience while I'm having mine.
I love that because it's so true right now that ascension, it's kind of like driving a car. Do you want to go 10 miles an hour, 100 miles an hour? And each have their consequences, but you're that conscious and that he came to you. And I know I have a son, he's grown now, but he used to come to me. I was in India once. He came to me. The avatar had asked me to stay. And that night, and I was considering it. And that night, my son came to me and touched my heart. And I knew I was to go home. And so but that's a very profound connection that you would understand ascension speed. Because I think that's one of the issues right now for people listening, that the way showers that we have on the summit, we are sharing our experience transparently, to be very honest, telling it's not all smooth and we don't always look like this. And there are bumpy moments, but it also has to do with your choice right now, your choice. How fast do you want to connect into the field? And who can you pack in your suitcase? Not everybody. Exactly. So, your family may change. I mean, you're not your biological family, but your group that you're sharing this knowledge with could change. Your boyfriend could change. So it's important that they understand that. And at this point, what do you feel is your actual mission? Where do you feel in terms of connecting? Because you definitely you're like a skilled gymnast with the quantum field, I must say. You definitely have created the architecture, the way to connect, and also the way to know when we're disconnecting or enmeshed in something that could pull us in another direction. So where do you see yourself in the evolutionary cycle moving, and how do you bring others along with you? Other family, of course.
Mm-hmm. So I'm a teacher. When I do healing work with anyone, I'm verbally expressing what's happening while it's happening. It's a little bit different with everyone because everyone has different ways of working and interacting with energy, and their gifts are a little bit different. So whether I have other healers that I mentor, I've got, that's why I've started the membership portal that I have, because each large group class, not only are we working through the enmeshments, but I'm taking people through the journey of how to do it as we're doing it. Because I'm not here to just do it for you. I think that was we did that a long time ago. A lot of healers did the work.
20 years.
But it's time to share the gifts and self-empowerment and embodiment. My greatest intention is to help people express the truth of who they are. And that's what I want for everybody, whether they can speak verbally or not. It's not a matter of being able to, we don't always have to speak it. Like my oldest son, I speak a lot for him, and that's okay. What we're here to do is express those source energy codes out as vastly as we can and share that with humanity, because we're all pieces of this magnificent puzzle that we call source energy. But if there's a piece missing, if there's a piece constricted, then we're not able to complete that puzzle and come into divine harmony as a whole and experience what it means to live in unity consciousness. So my intention is to bring back that divine union between all these different working aspects of the human container, and teaching people how to express them whole selves out into the world in a way that's consistent with expansion and not constriction.
Very well said. And how do you deal with the oppression of that? Because that is the mission of the mission of the summit, is to exactly to connect you with your divine essence, purpose, quantum creator self. So, but when we confront, but one of the things I'm aware of is that many have been held like, actually now they're showing me, they've been like bound up. They're and so afraid to take some of these steps. Even what you did in the school system, those are steps a lot of people would be afraid to take. So when we're encountering any kind of oppression, repression, even like vaccine related, for example, what's our quickest way to clear it? Do we clear it from the field, the quantum field, or from our own field?
We have to clear it from ourselves first. Otherwise, we're just going to keep connecting into the memory and the field of what that is and experience that. And so much of that repression expression, like that energy is, so much of its past life and past karmic ties that we continue to allow to dictate what we're doing and saying and how we're acting today. Anytime I come across a bit of fear, like the first time I ever did a telesummit, the first time I'd ever went and spoke at a school, I had never done public speaking before, but I encountered that fear and I allowed that fear to push me forward. I look at it and I say, okay, what is it that I'm really so scared of? And one time Archangel Michael came to me, and I share this often because it was so vivid. He came to me and I was asking him, like, should I really do this thing? I was, there was a point in time when I was really scared to share much about autism because I didn't want it to be twisted and used against them in some way.
Yeah.
So, but he showed me, and he's laying on my deathbed, and he said, are you going to be satisfied with the life that you've lived if you don't present this information, if you don't speak, if you don't do what you came here to do, and that fills your heart with joy, regardless of what your old friends thought or who family, friends, all these people were before you woke up and you became this person speaking out in the world. Are you going to be happy? And so that's what when I encounter fear, I'm like, okay, this is a form of self-judgment in some way. Even the vaccine, when I looked at the vaccine, can the vaccine really harm me? No, not if I don't allow it. So I actually ended up getting the vaccine because I wanted to experience what it was like. And remember, everything here is just an experience. So when I got the vaccine, my arm hurt so bad. And I just observed and I was like, okay, why does it hurt? It's like, oh, it's fear. There was so much fear. There was so much collective fear wrapped into it. So I took that collective fear right out. Gone, nothing. I felt like nothing. And the vaccine was like nothing, So we literally are the most powerful beings. True. But we don't give ourselves enough credit. When we live in fear, I think about like the greats, one time I was giving a speech and Martin Luther King came through and he was talking about how he was able to connect with so many people. And you have a broad audience. So Martin Luther King was part of the civil rights movements here in the States. And what we were talking about was the question I had asked in my mind, I just didn't think it was going to get answered while I was talking on a telesummit, was how come he could be so heard and so felt and connected with by the collective? And his words were embodied, and it was very empowered energy, and it was very expansive. Versus Malcolm X. Malcolm X was the same kind of civil rights leader, but he came from a place of anger. And so because he came from a place of anger, when he spoke, his energy didn't expand out into the quantum field very far. Because remember, there's dimensional planes within the quantum field, and each of these dimensional planes holds a range of frequencies. So if you're speaking out in a place of fear or anger or shame, you can only reach the dimensional field that those frequencies are located within. Well, Martin Luther King came from a place of peace and internal acceptance of where he was at and where those others like him were at, being a Black African American here in the United States at the time. And because he had made peace with that, when he spoke the truth that he spoke through him, he wasn't projecting that onto society in any way. He was just merely bringing through the level of consciousness that he was at. And then because it held such a high vibration, it was able to, move through the energy field and touch so many people in so many different planes of existence at the time. It was very expansive, and he wasn't telling anyone else to think. He was just sharing information. So we have the opportunity to do the same. When we're speaking our truths, we're not trying to push them onto someone else or change their mind. We don't need to do that. Someone else can live in whatever linear plane that they are in, while we live in a completely different dimensional place at the same time. We're not here to change everybody. We're here to hold and share our frequencies, and that's what creates the change. There's nothing that we have to do, be, or say to any other person. It's about our own self-expression here and becoming the greatest version of that, and continually working to expand and embody more and more levels of consciousness, more of those rays of light that our soul already embodies. But being able to embody that here through the physical container is a different story. And that's what we're working to heal and to shift and to change.
I love that. So well said. And I think also a perfect place for our conclusion. And if you're interested in receiving more, there's a very special gift that Erica is going to design specifically. She got the download earlier for this audience, because what's key, and I feel part of your experience, is that we all are going through this process, and there is fear. There is uncertainty. We all have been is taking baby steps and experiencing feedback and feedback loops from the quantum field and from your own mind. But the thing is, it's important each day to do this, to practice this awareness. So in conclusion, is there something you'd like to share about your gift or just about your process? Anything you'd like to share?
Okay. Yeah, the free gift that I'm offering are 4 classes that I taught a while ago on unifying the ego, mind, and body consciousness. And in it, we also meet the divine star child. That's your child self that has never been human before. So it's never experienced being programmed. And we introduce that to your human child. So it's a very inclusive and expansive class. And that's where I was guided to go with the free gift for this community of people, because they're really ready. It feels like they're really ready to embody the whole human self of healing.
Yes. And also, if you are experiencing some challenges with your children, whatever they call them these days, because they have a lot of labels, I think it's very good to reach out to Erica. Her work, she is an embodiment of a successful negotiation of a very complicated journey. And also, I would say galactically, that I feel like I'm speaking to a galactic, I feel like I'm speaking to the galaxy through you, actually. So she has a very different, you have a really different perspective that is extremely important that will help mothers, fathers navigate some of the challenges of these times. So I want to thank you and acknowledge you for the progress and the expansion that you're bringing to Earth by walking the journey in this way. It's really quite inspiring to me. And I think you've done an amazing job. It's incredible what you have learned and embodied. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm extremely honored to meet you.
Thank you. I am too. I love the energy of this show and yours. And it was really easy to bring through those levels of consciousness because of the space that you held for us all. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. We will be meeting again. So in terms of grounding, which is a big issue for the audience, how do you advise? What would you advise? Okay. What's going on with that?
So grounding is one of the most important things that we can do right now. And it needs to be looked at in a more expansive way. So our grounding cords have tended to be a little bit smaller, but as we continue to expand the levels of energy that we can embody and hold, that energy has to have somewhere to go. It can't just get locked in our systems because that's when we get our nerves fried and overwhelmed and stuff. And because of the electromagnetic frequencies that have changed in conjunction with our planetary systems and our distance from the sun and all these different things that are occurring, the energy has to have somewhere to go. So we need to open up our grounding cord massive. I always tell people to like the size of just keep feeling it, opening, 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 opening. Like imagine a redwood tree, one of those massive, massive trees. Open it that big and allow that to come through, because we often think that energy is just coming like straight down through the physical container, but that's not our reality. Our reality is it's coming through the entire energy matrix of who we are, because we're not really this solid thing, right? We're not really just this. When the archangels look at us, they don't see a solid figure, they see an energy matrix. When other galactic beings look at us, they don't necessarily see a solid being, they see an energy matrix. And that's how they're reading our energy so quickly and effectively, right? And giving us the information. They're seeing us just as the energy beings. So we need to see ourselves that way too. We can't just see ourselves as this one little human. We have to think of ourselves as an entire energy matrix. And so we need to ground that entire energy matrix down to the ground if we're going to continue to consume the amount of light that we're consuming or wanting to consume that goes along with the ascension process.
Thank you. Very well said. I love that. So expand your grounding cord. Think of a redwood tree. I love that. Give it a hug. And the influence of exercise to integrate as well. Mm-hmm. That's extremely important.